it's got to be giving when it hurts a little bit. So you're saying, God, let me trust you on this. Then he'll go, okay, I see that you trust me on this. He doesn't technically need your money. He wants to see it's your heart, right? So the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, right? No, the key word in there is the love of money. Money's not evil. The love of it is, right? So when it's like, I need that because of all these things, that's when it becomes an issue, but that's a heart issue on that. So God's got to deal with your heart. And when your heart gets that, he knows you're ready.
Hey, what's up, fam? Hey, it's your boy, Kevin, man, in my boo thing.
Tanya.
Hey, man, we here with another Couples Connect episode, man. This is season 2, baby. You can believe that?
Season 2 already?
Season 2 already, man. It's going down. So, guys, we're going to get right into this. We have an amazing, amazing couple for you guys today, man. We got Tommy and Diane, man, in the building, well, virtually, to help us, man, with this conversation tonight. And we can't wait to get into it. So, Tommy, Diane, welcome to the podcast, baby.
Thank you so much. No, we're excited to be here. You guys are the best. I mean, we've only known each other for a little bit, but already your guys' personality and your energy and your faith is so contagious. So I already know this podcast is going to be a great episode.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it, man. And our first initial conversation was so amazing, and it was really, really good to kind of get to know you and Diane, man, and just really kind of understand what you guys are about, which I've kind of knew a little bit already, just listen to your content, as you guys are content creators as well. And you guys are highlighting marriages, promoting marriages, and really helping people in that space. Before we even get into it, man, what kind of podcast you guys got? Tell everybody what you guys are doing in that space with marriages and stuff like that.
So our main thing that we do is coaching. I mean, we have a podcast as well, but that would probably be a smaller aspect of what we do. So we do focus on the marriage aspect of things, but technically it's husbands. So our business is called High Level Husband. Basically what we do is we create high level husbands who are on fire for God and irresistible to their wives. It's kind of like our mission statement of what we do. So we focus mainly on the men. We do work with a few females in there as well, but it's mainly the husbands that we work with. I mean, it's just kind of more of my passion of who I love leading is with the bold and challenging the men to really step up to the plate and extreme ownership and all of that. So we run that business. We've been doing that now for about 4 years. And then we have a podcast also that we've been doing for a couple of years and really pushed a lot more heavily into recently. And that's called High Level Husband as well. But it really is a marriage podcast. We talk a lot about masculinity and things, but we do a ton of female stuff on top of that. So that's our main things that we do.
Yeah, man. So what made y'all get into that space about doing a high level husband and the podcast in reference to that's really promoting marriages? What made y'all want to get into that space?
Well, it was God nudging us to get there was primarily the main thing. Because I would have, to be honest with you both, if you would have told me, I mean, even 5 years ago that this is where we would be in life in multi different areas, I'd have said, you crazy. What are you smoking over there? But that's typically the way God works, right? Is like, your will be done, Father. And when we're actually obedient, he'll take us to where we need to go. But when we fight the current, we're trying to go where we go, and usually that's a car crash or rubbing against the guardrail the whole time where we're trying to go to. And so it started with us being online fitness and nutrition coaches, which, led to mindset. And then from mindset, it led to marriage. And then from marriage, it led to just mainly leading the men on the aspects. And so it was just kind of the pruning process along the way just to get to where we are now.
Will there be a high level wife in the making? There's been talk about it, but but I don't know. We'll just see where God leads us. We're not sure yet.
It's things we've done, right? But I don't know if for sure, just as of yet, that's Diane's full calling to lead the women in those aspects on that. So we'll see. We'll see if we do that. I think the idea we're throwing around now is for Diane and her friend to do a podcast called High Level Housewives, which is for wives who are the wives of high-level men, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people like that, and really speaking in that space, because we know from a lot of wives who are housewives, a lot of times their self-worth and confidence can be low because they see they're maybe not as much as their husband who's out there taking territory and doing all of that, and not understanding like that Diane's equally as important to more business, which is probably more my face and more me doing most of the work. She's equally, if not more important to that business. And because of all the stuff she does around the house with the kids and on the back end, whereas I know a lot of women can struggle with self-worth in those areas because they just don't see it as like husband's making money, husband's the face of the business, and I'm doing all this other stuff, and it's not equal, but it really is in so many ways. And so that might be the high-level wife.
We'll see.
Things.
Never say no, because that'll take you places to where you have no clue that you would have gone.
So true, man. So true, right? God's plan versus our plan is like, he can't even, it don't even match, right? So God's plan is always better than what we plan. So, but listen, man, I really wanted to get you guys on the podcast, and because you guys just seem to be such awesome couple in terms of, doing stuff together. I love how you guys are always really pushing the envelopes with your podcast in terms of the content nature of everything, right? Got that little undertone, a little sexual undertone piece to it with an amazing message, right, at the end of it. So I just really connected with that and reached out to you guys. So I'm just, once again, excited that you guys are here, being on the podcast, man. And let's get into some conversation, man. Let's talk about some stuff. So tell me this. I know that we talked about personal development, which I absolutely love the idea of personal development. My wife, man, tell a bit about your story, baby. Just real quick about like how long you've been on a journey, because personal development is, you think about it as being a personable thing, but still in a marriage, man, there's so many benefits, because in a marriage that the other partner, the whole marriage can benefit from one person going deeper, looking in, right? And my wife went through that journey. She started her journey way before mine. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I just kind of like hit a wall because I felt that I needed to grow. I didn't want to stay the same anymore. I wanted to have a voice, that kind of stuff. And so I went on this journey back, maybe 9 years ago, still on this journey. When I started this journey to personal development, I knew nothing about shadow work. I knew nothing about, really what personal development was. I just knew I needed to change. So I started reading my Bible. I went to my Bible to identify my identity in Christ first. And then I read books, and I listened to, things like Oprah and her Super Soul Sunday. I just went on a journey to self-development, and it has paid off and still paying off. So I love the topic in the area of personal development. There are so many levels to it. Also the shadow work. I don't know if you're going to get into that a little bit, but yeah, I started my journey some years ago. I can go on and on about it, but this is you guys' time. So
yeah. So to kind of piggyback on that, and before I turn it over to you guys, about 2 years maybe after you were in it, it's kind of when I kind of started digging a little bit more into my own personal development. So, and I think both of us doing the personal work, I think it's paid dividends within our marriage. Still got things to work on for sure. But I could definitely pay dividends, within our marriage by each one of us taking that time and doing something separate apart from the other and digging within and looking, within ourselves. And I think it paid off, in certain areas of our marriage for sure. But we're still on that journey. So let's talk about you guys, man. How is that personal development? Because I think you guys mentioned that was kind of a little bit more personal to you guys about that personal development journey. Let's talk about it, Tommy, Diane.
Yeah. And first, I love what you were saying there on that, Tanya, is it's like you wanted to keep growing, right? Where so many people, we get stuck in life and we just stop growing. Maybe we found our career, we have kids, we got our marriage, we've checked all the boxes, and it's like, all right, well, what society tells you is what, go to college, get the house, picket fence, 2 kids, get your career, and then just do that until you're 65 and then you retire, which is not what God's plan. Show me in the Bible where that is. 0%, right? That's society's made up. And so we just plateau. And then once we plateau, even if it's great things like a house, kids, career, if we're not getting better every day, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? And so I just know that's the parable of the talents. The last person was just staying the same. He wasn't like getting worse, like when like gambling his money away or doing drugs or anything like that. He just stayed the same. And because of that, God came and took his talents away and gave it to the people who were doing better.
That's good, boy. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you say on that. Sonya's like, you desired that, which is so awesome because you desired that. Where oftentimes in life we have to like hit a wall or we have to like get to a spot of rock bottom or some kind of tragedy to finally be like, all right, I need to do better. And so that's why Jesus says, if you're lukewarm, he'll spit you out, because that lukewarm is more dangerous than being rock bottom, because rock bottom, you'll do something about it. Lukewarm, you're too good to be great.
Yeah.
And so that's where we found ourselves at after many years, just like had kind of plateaued. We had got the things of this world. We had got finances. We had the house. We had all that stuff. And we were like, is this all there is to life? Because if this is what my life looks like for the next 30, 40 years, I'm going to be pretty disappointed.
Yeah.
That sounds ungrateful. But it's just, I just knew God had that calling inside of me, the same thing you're saying, Tanya, of like, there's so much more for you, and you're not even scratching the surface, which is why I felt so down on myself. And I think similar
Same
for
thing
you.
For me, absolutely. And I think, when you think about it too, God desires so much more out of us too.
Yeah.
So it's not just, it's us desiring it from ourselves too, but it's him desiring it from us also.
Yeah. So that's where we got on that journey for us. And that kind of started that process of us working on ourselves. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Jim Rohn, and I'm going to butcher his quote right here, but he's basically like, I'll work on me for you, and you work on yourself for me. Right? Whereas most people think that like, oh, I'll just serve you all day long and I'll just die to myself and I'll just let myself go and put myself last. Well, it's like, no, I'll work on me. So I'm the best me. So you get the best me, and you do the exact same and I'll get the best you. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we'll have the best marriage. And so that's what it's really about. And as I told you, as originally we were talking, is our whole coaching program and just our lives is really based off, the two main commandments, the first one where Jesus says, love and honor God, worship God the Father with all your mind, heart, and soul, basically, Number one, obviously, so we live our lives that way fully. And then two is to love your neighbor as yourself. Key word, as you love yourself. Most people are struggling in as they love themselves. And we can only love somebody as much as we love ourselves. And so we may be giving them everything we have, but it may be only a 2 out of 10. So when we really get that Jim Rohn quote, and we do that, then we can love at a way bigger level. And we saw that in our marriage when I was able to love her because I was so enough in myself and enough in God. And when she became enough in herself and enough in God, it was like our marriage was amazing because we didn't have pressure. I didn't need her to fill my cup. I didn't have expectations. I didn't need her, to get a little bit bold, to have intimacy for me to feel like, oh, I'm worthier now. I was good with myself. We would take it or leave it. And because of that, I was an attractive, confident man. And because she's the same way, she's an attractive, confident woman. But when I'm this needy puppy dog, ain't nobody want to know none of that. And that's not attractive because those guys aren't enough in themselves. So become that and watch what happens in your life personally, but in your marriage. On top of it, it'll just get better and better and better, as I'm sure you guys are experiencing.
You just said it. So many couples are struggling with what you just said. I even struggle with that. Early on, like maybe 17 years in our marriage, I struggled with that, right? Wanting that, not loving myself enough, and to love him better or whatever. I had to learn how to love myself and be confident in that. And it's funny to hear actually a man say that, because usually you don't hear that from a guy. It's usually the women that you hear saying that stuff. So that's kind of cool that you're saying that. And you're still coming from a masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that journey like though? To what was that point where you felt like, okay, I need to get better, right? What was that for both of you guys? And then what was the process to do that, to like start the work of getting better, right? We know the big picture is just working on yourself and getting better, and then things happen. But what was that process like to get better, right?
Started with you.
Yeah. I'll jump on my part, and then you jump in, babe, because your part is like, it started technically with me. And so we've been in Vegas now for 4 years, but 4.5 years ago, I raced little kids' bikes, BMX bikes, and I was down here for a national first race of the season, and I crashed and punctured my lungs, severed 5 ribs, separated my shoulder, was knocked unconscious, and was in the back of an ambulance on the way to the trauma ICU, where I had to have like tubes coming out of my body everywhere and all these things. And I couldn't breathe at all because my lung was punctured, and I thought I was dying. And then the way the paramedics were talking was like, yeah, this dude isn't going to make it. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, here I am in the back of this ambulance. I'm 39. I'm not loving my life at this time at all. I'm not following God's path. I'm a believer in God. I'm going to church. I'm reading the Bible a little bit. I'm praying every day, but I'm really not doing what he's asking me to do. I'm really not focusing and growing on what Tanya was saying, becoming this better person. I kind of like stagnated out, and I just didn't know that God what Ephesians 3:20 says, that God can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. I don't know about you guys, right? I'm sure you can imagine and ask some pretty darn big things. So if God said immeasurably more, let's go find out what that is. But I was not doing that. I was just like, only some people have finances because, they got lucky, or they are smarter than me, or they have this or this. And it's like, no, God specifically made us chosen for a reason. I just didn't know what mine was. So I figured it out. So as I'm laying in the back of in the ambulance, basically dead, and I felt God 0%. And you think, well, you're about to die, that's probably we should feel God the most and all these other things. And I was just reflecting on my life, and I was like, dude, you've done nothing with your life. Like, done nothing. Are you going to get to, if you make it to heaven and you get there, God's going to be like, really? This is what you've brought to me? Like, I gave you so many opportunities and you turned them all down. And so in that moment, it was like, let's let it rip, baby. I almost already died. What can get worse than that? We did. COVID hits 2 months later. So 2020 was now a wild ride. I almost died. And then COVID hits, and we're in California. So we just decided to leave. And that was when we had to go all in, because then we had no finances. We had 2 mortgages at the time and 2 kids and no income. So God was like, let me show you my power of what I actually can do when you guys actually become obedient to me. And so we just went 100% obedient. Whatever he asked, it was a yes and amen. And every single time it was scary. It wasn't easy things. It was investing insane amount of money. It was moving across country. It was doing all these things. It wasn't just like, hey, start reading the Bible. It was like intense things. But because of that big thing, he blessed us. And so we went all in on developing us, our mindset, our bodies, our spirituality, our relationship, our friendships. We removed everything from our life. We basically look at it as like a computer. We defragged that whole computer. We deleted every single file in it of everything. We got rid of all of our friends. We got rid of all of our bad habits that didn't make us think, feel, or be better. And because of that, we started fresh. And now our computer was running fast again. And then when I did that, that's when you jumped in on the journey. And because we moved,
Yeah, I mean, because it really started years before that. We had gone all in, 4.5 years ago, but it started a little bit before that. And it was hard. It's hard when I saw him growing and becoming a better person, but I felt like I was so far behind. It was tough. I'd go to the gym and I'd cry every time I went to the gym. It was jumping into these harder things that I wasn't used to. That's because my confidence was so low, and the worth wasn't there for myself. And so it took me a while, but once I really saw him go all in and we were going all in on this, I didn't really have any other choice. I had to do the same.
It was the discipline aspect, the thing that was probably the biggest. And that's one of the biggest things we teach our clients, is that you got to make it non-negotiable. Like 5 out of 7 days a week is 71%. Nobody wants a 71% marriage or faith life or finances, but people are like, 5 out of 7, I'm doing great. No, 5 out of 7, you got a C grade. If you were in high school, you're not even able to play sports technically. Well, don't you want an A+? You can control that by doing it every day. One of my favorite stories is of Diane. During that process of these past few years, she did 75 hard, the full thing. She did 40 straight days of ice baths. She did two straight years of 10,000 steps every day. And my favorite part was, and it's kind of a sad, good one, is on the day that her dad died, she had to fly across country, watch them wheel his body out of the house. She still did her disciplines that day, because she says, devil, even in the face of death, I will not back down. You can go ahead and bring death to my family, but you're not going to bring death to my mission that God has promised me. And because of that, I'm still doing my disciplines. And because of that, God has seen her obedience and changed her confidence, her self-worth, her mission, and has blessed her. Like he says in Matthew 6, seek the kingdom first and all of this will be given to you. And now she's finding what all of that is, because she didn't, even in the face of death, give in. And so that's the discipline aspect of it. You can't see, I'm proud of her, extremely proud of her for those things.
Wow. Diane, how do you feel to hear your husband so passionate about how he speaks about your journey and how proud of you he is to complete all that and get that done?
It feels so good. I mean, he saw what I came from. He saw the kind of person that I was compared to the person I am now. And so it reminds me of where I came from, because sometimes we often forget when we've been on a growth journey, we kind of forget where we were at one time, you know. And so hearing him speak about that, it reminds me of where I came from and the kind of person that I was and how much better of a person I am now. Even though I still have room to grow, you know, for sure.
Yeah. He gave a great idea of where you come from. I would love to hear it in your word. Where did you come from? Like in the beginning to now, this woman that you are, that he's so proud of. Where were you in the beginning?
Yeah, I was mediocre. I was in the same job that I had for 19 years before we started this business, which was like a few dollars above minimum wage. I had no confidence in myself. I'll get a little vulgar. When we were in intimate times together, it was like the lights had to be off. You know, I didn't want people to see, I didn't want him to see what I looked like, you know, because my confidence was shy. I had no confidence in myself in any area of my life. I didn't have any disciplines. I had no hobbies for myself. I had nothing for me, you know, at all. And it was kind of how we were talking about earlier. It was everything for like him and the kids and stuff. I just didn't concentrate on anything for myself. And so that really had dropped who I was as a person. I really had to find who I was and grow that confidence in myself through my disciplines.
Wow. So do you know who you are now?
Absolutely.
Hey, who are you? Who are you, Diane?
Absolutely. I'm a confident woman of this man, a spouse of this man.
Show the phone. Read it off the phone. Oh, you probably. Yeah. So her screensaver on her phone says this right here.
Yeah, screensaver on my phone. It's my thing here. I'm Tommy McCollister. I'm a woman of authority, discipline, and courage. I'm here to serve God and His people. That's who I am.
Wow. Yes. I like it, man. That's pretty dope, man. Because you know, I know the journey it takes. You know, and by the way, kudos to you, Diane. 75 hard, ice baths, all the things you did, girl. Oh my God. I did like I did about 12 hard. I didn't do 75. I did 12.
I did about a 7 soft.
So kudos to you guys, man, for really pushing through, and I love, but it's the discipline, right? It is wanting to change more than you want to stay the same. By the way, Jim Rohn, when I first started my personal journey, self-development journey, that was my dude. That's who I started with, man. I was going to work, listening to his stuff, man, and I was just really immersed with everything Jim was talking about, and it really started me on my journey. So I know a little bit about some Jim Rohn. Love that content and all he has to say. So tell me this. So let's talk about it. So what was kind of like I know you say you guys were down, you didn't know money, and going through this whole, you know, process of, you know, building yourself up. How do things look for you guys today?
I mean, it's night and day difference. And what's wild is like now with like the clients that come in, they see us as this version because they've either maybe seen us on social media for, you know, maybe they've come in the last few months on social media, or maybe they've been following us for a couple of years, but they only see this version. It's so funny because all the times they always say, well, tell me that's easy for you. You got a unicorn of a wife. They didn't see that version of Diane that she just told you who she was, right? They just see who she is today, or they didn't only see Tommy as who he is today. They didn't see me years ago as a completely different person. And so it's wild now to speak from this, but it's so cool because as God does, like our testimony isn't just for us. Sure, we get to reap some of the fruit from it, but in the benefits, but it really is just for other people to be possibility. As God's like, well, I'm going to show what's possible in your guys' life so it can be possibility for other marriages or other individuals, that God will do those same things in their life. Because sometimes people have a hard time believing it because they haven't gone through it, or they think the Bible, yeah, that's thousands of years ago, and I don't know if he still does that today. So when people see that of us today, that's our whole thing is that. But it's just wild today. Like, so we've been married now for 18 years, been together for 25 total. You know, just on like the business side of things, we have over 500,000 followers. It's wild. Like we have 700 million views of our content, and average probably about 30 or 40 million views a month right now. It's insane, like what happens with that reach, you know. So then like right now, just specifically, I think we have like 65 clients that we're specifically coaching through marriage at this moment. And it's just wild, like how that just our ministry just keeps growing and growing and growing. And one of the things that held us back for so many years when we were living in the other city was our finances were pretty good. Now, we didn't love what we did for a living, but at the same time, like, that was like our security. And oftentimes it's a tool of the devil. It's like, I'm going to give you security because then you're going to be stuck to that. You're going to sell your soul for it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we said was, we'll never make the type of money that we're making now anywhere else, because what are we going to do? We don't have talents in anywhere else. We didn't know we could do things like this. And God is so gracious, and this isn't a flex, but he's literally like 10x what we made. Like, we made more, and when I say this, please don't take it as a flex. What we made in this last month was probably about 1.5 times of what Diane used to make in a year in 1 month. All just this last month. And it's insane what God can do when you actually give him something to work with. He does want to prosper you. The things that he talks about in Jeremiah 29:11, the Lord has plans for you, as you know what he says, to prosper you, not harm you. And it's so crazy. It's so true.
Yeah.
But we got to go give him something to work with too, to be able to do that. It's just not going to fall in our lap.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been crazy to be able to see. We've had the privilege of coaching professional athletes, people I used to watch on TV. Now we're their coaches, chart topping musicians, and all these other people that, like, we're coaching. Come on now. We've only been doing this for 4 years, but it's just what God does when he takes you, realize your talents in you, and then just realizes that's unique in each of you. Let those shine. And then when you do that, and because you're going to glorify God with it, like, we 100% glorify God with it. It's not just so Tommy and Diane can get ourselves a Lambo and a Rolex and then post up on Fiji. It's so we can just glorify God. That's literally all that matters on that. And because of that, he knows our hearts are in the right spot. And so because of that, he blesses in those areas. And so it's been a wild journey to get here, but humbled is the word to say, because I can't believe this is our life, and I can't believe who we become.
Yeah.
So a question around that. So why do you think you have the success that you have now? I know it's because of God. You've said that.
Mm-hmm.
But was it the mindset shift? Like, what did you guys do differently than what you were doing 4.5 years ago? That you have
courage and risk.
Success? What was it?
Doing things that don't make sense. And that's why I speak this all the time from stage and things like that, is being a Christian is irresponsible in all the above, because it doesn't make sense. God doesn't say 1 + 1 = 2. God is like 1 + 1 = 73, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense to this world. And because of that, that's where faith comes in, because if it always was just clear and cut and dry, 1 + 1 = 2, everybody could do that, right? And there would be no faith, there'd be no trusting. And so when we just kept doing different things, like we were tithing big amounts when that was the last of our money, it just didn't make sense to be like, well, I'm at an event and I'm feeling like I need to tithe $1,000 today. I only got 4,000 in my account. That doesn't make sense, right? Because bills are going to hit in a few days and I'm not going to have any, right? But when I'm willing to show God that this is your money, when the Lord's Prayer says, your kingdom come, your will be done. So we're asking to be under his kingdom. And because we're under his kingdom, it's all his money, his house, my wife, everything is his. And so if he asks for $1,000, I give it to him because it's his. It ain't mine. Even though technically I went and put in the work for it, it's still his. And so we just started making bold move after bold move,
fully trusting,
and just trusting. What that was first moving. That was when we got down here, we didn't have, like we said, no income. When we started a coaching program, we literally we have 2 cars for a family of 4, like most people. We took our second car and sold it, and took that money and invested all of it into coaching, so we could grow better as individuals in a business. Most people is going to say, well, that's not a smart idea. You need 2 cars and all these other things. Well, cool. Show me how that's working out for you, because I'm showing you right now how that's working out for us. We went and just gave God to work with it. Elijah burned the plow. We burned the plow. When God says, do this, go do it. And so when we did it, it's all courage, and every single time doing things that just doesn't make sense. When you're willing to do it, God blesses it. When he asked Peter to step out on the water, it doesn't make sense. He does it, right? So when we're willing to do that same thing, God's willing to see what you can work with. He can be trusted with little, can be trusted with many. Let's show him we're willing to be trusted with many. So that's what.
Hey, boy, y'all get me fired up in here, boy. I'm telling you.
That patient.
She's saying the passion, but it's not the passion that I feel about the success. It's the passion you have for God.
Yeah, for God.
Yeah, I know. I was complimenting what you're saying, girl. I'm with you, baby. I'm with you. But the passion you have for God is just so amazing, man. And I could just see the fire just oozing out you, man, when you speak of God. And I just love it, love it, love it. And I can see how, you guys clients, what I'm saying, can really connect with you guys in that space, because man, I'm fired up right now. I want to come to Vegas and be like, man, what's up, baby? Let's but I just love the energy and your passion about God, man. And I think this is really good, because there's a lot of times when couples are doing things together, God sometimes is not in the equation, but it seems like you guys were really intentional about using God's principles in everything that you guys did, with the tithing. I used to struggle with tithing for the longest. And then we recently, maybe for a couple of years now, we got 100% to where we tithe on a regular, but I'm pretty sure a lot of other people struggle with that tithing. Let's get to that just for a few minutes. Let's spend a few minutes on that, because I think that's a major, major part, right? When you say bring all the first of everything into my storehouse, right? And I think a lot of people miss that because they don't want to give, because maybe they just don't understand that it truly is God's money. It's not ours, right? And I recently discovered that a couple of years ago, that it's not my money, it's God's money. So it's a whole different mind shift on how you look at money when you think about it like that. So tithing, have you guys always tithe? How was tithing for you guys, even when things were super, super tough?
I'd say we always tithe, but it wasn't always the amount that we should have been tithing. It wasn't until probably, I don't know how long.
Probably about 2.5 years ago, in the Texas group.
And tithing, I think tithing's probably the last one, really trusting God with finances. I think that's why so many people struggle. It's the hardest one to let go of. Mm-hmm. It's the hardest one to be able to trust in, because you see how much money you have in the bank, and you see with the bills that you have, and you're like, how am I going to do this? This doesn't make sense. Like Tommy was saying earlier, and it is the last one I think people have it's the hardest one for people to trust in.
Yeah. Like Diane said, it would be like we tithe the same amount whether we were killing it that month or we were terrible that month. We were the same, and it was like 1% or 2%. It was like 20, 25 bucks every week. All right, cool. I'm doing my part, but it was like, come on now. And so when we actually got to the 10%, and then now we're doing it way above 10%, and it doesn't even bother me. Like, I'm stoked. I'm looking for areas that I can give. Like, I'm just like, cool. Like, and not for like what I can get out of it. I've seen blessings from that, but it's really not what I can get out of it. But it's trusting God, just as I said a little bit about when you can trust it with little, you can be trusted with many. So many people say, well, I'll tithe when I get that money. No, you won't, because you already have this, and he's blessed you with this. You'll create new problems. Your lifestyle will now grow to having more money. You'll have a bigger house, a bigger car, all these other expenses, and you'll be like, yeah, you know what, now I need to prepare for retirement. So then when I retire, I'm just set, then I will. Well, then there's no faith if you're giving out of your extra, right? It's got to be giving when it hurts a little bit. So you're saying, God, let me trust you on this. Then he'll go, okay, I see that you trust me on this. He doesn't technically need your money. He wants to see it's your heart, right? So the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, right? So people are like, well, that's why God wants you broke. No, the key word in there is the love of money. Money's not evil. The love of it is, right? So when it's like, I need that because of all these things, that's when it becomes an issue. But that's a heart issue on that. So God's got to deal with your heart. And when your heart gets that, he knows you're ready. He held out on us for so long. And that was my arguments with him. I was like, I'm in the word every day. I'm preaching your word. I'm Sabbathing. I'm at church. Like, I'm doing all these things. Why aren't you just blessing? I'm watching these guys who are like terrible things, and they're blowing. Like, why can't your boy be here? And he was like, because your heart's not ready, because it's still an idol for you on all of that. And when it became a spot to my life where it wasn't an idol, then he was like, now you're ready. And he turned on the fire hose, because he knew it wouldn't ruin me in all these other areas. And I wouldn't take my eyes off him and then now make that an idol in my life and stop focusing on him. And so it's just a trust process in it. So that's kind of our spiel on the tithe.
I think you're in your next life or your next career, you're going to be a pastor. I prophesied that.
You preachers now, right? You preachers now.
Yeah. So, Diane, have you ever thought your husband was crazy? Because he sounds like he's this like big visionary, and he's not afraid to take risks like my husband. Have you ever thought to yourself or even shared with him like, you are crazy?
Yes, and he'll say, I used to be the no girl, so he would bring all these crazy ideas to me, and before he could even finish his statement, I was like, nope, nope. He's always been, a visionary, just had all these thoughts and great ideas and things, but I'm not that way. I'm completely different than him, so I always just used to think like he was just insane with all these ideas, and then I'd start doing his ideas, and I'd say, oh, you're not so crazy.
But to be honest, and I think that's a great question on this statement, is because a lot of couples are that way. The husband is technically, maybe he's the visionary, the go-getter, but to where she said no for a reason, because I wasn't leading myself well. I wasn't in the word. I wasn't passionate like this for God. And I would fail and quit on a lot of ideas and all these things. And so I just didn't have the receipts proving that I would make them work, or if they didn't work, I wouldn't take them out on anybody else, and that would be a learning thing. That wasn't it. And so I just didn't have anything showing that. And so, guys, if you want your wives to trust you, for everybody listening to this, be a man of your word and follow through. And if it doesn't work out, not everything does, then just don't take it out on everybody else around you and be negative and a person like that. You have to be able to show that you can be trusted in winning and losing. And because of that, she then understood that, hey, this is going to go good either way. We're either going to win, or if we don't, it's going to be the next stepping stone that's going to take it to there. And he's still just going to love on me as if we did win. Yeah. And because of that, she was like, I'm safe. I'm secure, because that's the women's thing, right? Is safety and security. So so on the finances, if I was losing the money and then took it out on her, not only were we not secure in finances, I wasn't secure emotionally, but because I was doing both, she then got to the spot of like, yeah, just whatever. She was sometimes be pushing me to do more. And I was like, this is going too fast, babe. And she's like, no, do it. She became addicted to it more than I did. So here's how I can switch.
This episode of Couples Connect is sponsored by Just Like You Hair Care System. Introducing Just Like You Hair Care, the perfect solution for healthy, growing, moisturized hair. Our hair growth oil is enriched with essential oils like calendula, lavender, rose petals, also enriched with nourishing jojoba oil, promoting growth, reducing breakage, and restoring scalp health. Follow with our moisturizing leave-in cream to lock in hydration for smooth, manageable hair all day long. So you get to feel confident with thicker, stronger, and deeply moisturized hair. Our products are made with all natural ingredients and is designed for women or anyone who want a holistic approach to hair wellness. Shop today and experience the transformation. Just like you hair care, your hair, your confidence, and your journey. The link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode. So how did you get to that part of you that you just said? Like, because it takes some self-awareness to get there, like the personal development work, I guess, what you have worked on yourself to be able to admit that, which you just admitted. Because I don't think if you didn't have that self-awareness or have gone inward, you wouldn't be able to admit that out loud. Yeah. That you, not necessarily you're saying you sucked, right? But you just wasn't, you didn't make her feel safe in that way. And that's why she was saying no, because you couldn't produce receipts.
Yeah.
So were you always that way or just recently?
I mean, I've always been really hard on myself in a lot of things. Yeah. And that's a gift and a curse, right? Because then it's like sharpening you. But then sometimes you don't get to enjoy things as much because you're like, oh, today, like, I only scored 30 points and only had 12 assists and I missed this one shot, right? And then you focus on that one shot, which is great because then you're going to perfect that shot and you're going to have a little bit better next time. But then you're not like, man, I'm actually winning over here. And so I was really hard on myself for many, many years. And I still am in certain things because I was trying to win other people's approval because I came from a house where my dad didn't approve of me. And because of that, I was trying to seek validation, whether that was from my wife, other women, other people. I was just like, I need to be better, and I'll feel this love. Well, what I realized was it was never going to come. She already loved me as I was, and I wasn't enough, as what we talked earlier, in myself and in God. And so it was just that process of just having to be able to be in the Word and realizing how much God was doing. But I think the biggest key turning point for me was all of the years of personal development, being in the Word, being hard on myself. But I joined a men's mastermind out in Texas, and we were out there once a month with these guys, and it was about 12 to 15 of us, but men who are entrepreneurs who came together, who were pushing limits of life. When I came in, I was very insecure and had imposter syndrome because at that time I saw money as your worth, right? And so I was the person who made the least amount of money in this thing, even though I had the best marriage and maybe other things. And that was really hard. But when I got in there, what I saw was possibility in other men. I saw possibility in their business, how they were leaning on God and all these other things. And so just being around other people showed me what was possible. That's why we all know the statement, right? You're the sum of the 5 closest people in your life. Or if you hang out with 9 broke people, you become the 10th. Or if you hang out with 9 rich people, you become the 10th. And so you got to be very careful of what you're consuming on TV, social media, all of that. But then you have to be very careful who you're actually doing life with, because you have to be protective of the information putting in your head. I want to be around people who are showing me what is possible. That's why the apostles got so radically wrecked, right? Because Jesus showed that. And then the next people saw the apostles, and so on and so forth. We have to be around amazing people. And when I was around other people, I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And they were encouraging me and telling me I had all these amazing talents that I never had saw before. And then I became an encourager for my wife, as you guys saw. And then that rippled out. So it really came down to the final blow was just me surrounding myself with the right people who had got it number one in their life, not fitting him in where they had to be number one in their life. Not any worldly success, God number one. Because of that, I'll listen. Because of that, God spoke to them, to me. So.
Wow, man, that's so good. Man, what was your hardest struggle during your personal development time? What was the hardest thing that you had to deal with when you looked inward? What was the hardest struggle you maybe still even dealing with? I don't know. Ego, I don't know. Whatever that thing may be. Was there something that it was just a little bit harder to shake than other things when you look inward? When you looked in the inside, what did you see, Tommy?
I think that for me, and I'm not sure for you, but for me, I was obedient, but I still kind of I was willing to run. If God said jump in the furnace like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I was going in the furnace. I just didn't. I probably thought I probably would burn to death, but I was still willing to go in, And I think that was the thing for me is, God, I'm willing to do this. I just didn't believe 100% every time that he would make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's in James 1:6 when he says, when you pray, do not doubt. For then if you do, you'll be like the waves of the sea, blown and tossed around. And that was me, getting blown and tossed around. I was still willing to go, but I was of the waves of the sea, highs, lows, highs, lows. And I got so tired. That's an emotional roller coaster. And I was so tired on the side. Just, God, when are you going to finally do something here? And so eventually, just because I stayed persistent and consistent, eventually the seas slowly started doing it, because then I started, as I said earlier, with the receipts, started seeing them. Okay, you did do this, God. Maybe not giant, but then you did this, then you did this, then you did this. And I was like, oh, you are working. I just had to stay steady for 4 years, not 4 weeks or 4 days. You guys, like you said, you've been in the personal development, but also is fitness, right? How many people fall off after 2 weeks? I didn't lose 30 pounds in the first 2 weeks. This sucks. Come on, right? 4 years. No, you got to show 4 years, and then let's see what happened. And so for me, it was just God, are you ever going to break this open for me? Because I'm still going to go, but I'm getting really, really tired over here. And so it just took the consistency. So that was for me, was God, are you ever going to do it? Because I just came from a place of limitations. Nobody in my family had ever done anything with their life really above anything, just like the average Joe. Same thing with Diane. From every single person in the city we lived, it was just a small rural city in the middle of nowhere. So I just didn't understand possibility. That's why it was so important for me to get around other men from other places and other walks of life to understand that. But then I was playing the comparison game with them. So that started playing with me in my head, well, why are they winning and I'm not, And then it just kept going. So that was the longest, hardest battle for me on that. I don't know, if you have yours.
Sound like that whole, don't get weary in well doing, and you kept getting weary, right? You're doing good, but just don't get weary, man. Just stay the course, man. But that's good. That was good, Tommy. How about you, Diane?
I honestly don't know. I think probably some of the hardest times was watching him go through that. because, I saw him becoming a leader of our house, and I saw him becoming a leader of himself, just a better person. But I think seeing some of those struggles then would make me kind of worry about certain things. I've always been somebody that has a pretty positive outlook on everything, and I know just that God's going to make everything work out, and so I'm just a really even keel kind of person. And so I think some of the biggest things were watching him be uncertain about certain things and watching him kind of go through that, which then kind of made me uncertain about certain things too.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, that totally. It's because you're looking to him for strength and all that stuff and guidance. And if he's a little shaky, then you'd be like, something ain't right. So I can definitely see that, man. So So tell me this. So with everything that you guys are doing, man, in terms of your personal coaching, I guess you could say, with other people and stuff like that, what does that look like? What are you guys seeing with some of the people that you're coaching? What's probably the most common things you guys deal with when you're coaching other people that they're struggling with, that they're going through? What's anything in particular?
And is it life coaching? What type of coaching do you really do?
So it is based around marriage. Like, everybody who comes in is there to have a better marriage.
Right.
Now, because of what we said earlier with love your neighbor as yourself, we totally present it through the process before they become a client as like, hey, this is about you turning the mirror on you and not just pointing at your wife and saying, she's the issue. And that's what most people do. They think that their spouse is the problem.
Right.
Now, do they play a part in it? Sure. But it's always our own individual struggles that get brought to the marriage on that. And so it is life coaching to a certain extent, but how to be a better husband via the life coaching aspect of things. And so I would say the thing that most people struggle with, what they think they're struggling with, is a disrespectful wife or a wife that's not having enough intimacy with them. And that's what they think the issue is. When they really, if they were to actually, in their truthful moments, they know they're dropping the ball in many different areas. And so when they come in, I'll tell you, it's primarily Jesus. That's what I'm just so thankful. It's like when somebody comes in, yes, it's our system that walks them through it is pretty polished. But really, the very first things we do is we develop a deeper relationship with Christ with them. Mm-hmm. As you guys are seeing, I speak passionately, so they get to be around somebody else who's like, they're like, I've never heard anybody speak like this. And if I have, it's like a random pastor here and there, but I don't really have access to them. And I'm like, well, no, like, I was in your shoes. You can do this as well. And so what happens is they really start going from lukewarm in their areas of self-doubt, of past traumas that they've held on into their life, of not pushing limitations and all of that, getting things of the world and having that not make them happy and all of those things. And so when we get them centered with Christ, then we focus on them actually falling in love with themselves and being enough in themselves, as we kind of talk about ourselves. That's the process we go, because most of the men that come in are needing their wife to do something for them, to fill their cup. Yeah. And which is the only thing that's pushing their wife away, because then that just all the pressure's on the wife saying, well, I can sleep with you every single day, and that still won't fix the problem. And that's where the men have to, and then when they start turning it on themselves. So it's usually just that right there. I hope that kind of gives you a little explanation.
Man, that's crazy to kind of really dig into a whole bunch of different marriages and stuff like that, and kind of see what marriages are going through, the struggles, that people are going through. And our thing, for this podcast was, I don't know if I mentioned it to you the other night, is, marriages that's suffering in silence, so all the things that's going on behind the scenes, because of course on social media, it's like everybody has an amazing marriage. But behind the scenes, as we know, sometimes it's a different story. Yeah. With couples, man. So with your program, right, that you guys are offering, what would be something that you feel like, what was the craziest scenario, if you don't mind sharing, that you've had that you've had to coach someone through? And I know it's probably primarily through like personal development and getting better. But what was the craziest scenario a couple has ever came to you guys with, that you had to face, and you're like, I don't even know if y'all might need to go straight to Jesus for this one. I don't know if we can help y'all. Y'all might just need straight Jesus. Anything in particular that stands out?
I've heard it all, to tell you the truth. It's kind of like what you know, and that's when I tell people when I first talk with them, I'm like, hey, be 100% open and vulnerable with me. You're not going to shock me. And that's why I always lead with vulnerability and share. We get so raw and real on social media and in our coaching to share all of our secrets and things, because then it allows people to feel like a safe space that if we're willing to do it, it gives them permission to do it as well. Mm-hmm. But if we're holding our chips to our chest and thinking that we're just, well, we're not sharing anything, they're not going to share anything. It's the same thing in marriage. Marriage is a direct reflection of each other, right? So Diane says, when I'm stressed, she's stressed. If I'm happy, she's happy, right? So if I'm not being vulnerable, she's not being vulnerable. So same thing in a coaching relationship. If I'm not being vulnerable, they're not going to be vulnerable. And so when they come in, we've seen everything from terrible infidelity, from death of children, to I had somebody this year who got and he's growing to being one of the coaches in our program right now. He had spent over $100,000 on porn. Like, imagine spending 6 figures on porn. What are you on? Like, oh my God. Well, I mean, right? But hey, you know, apparently there's levels to the game. And he spent so much, and his wife didn't know that he had blown all their money on this and everything. And eventually came to light, and he had cheated on her multiple times and all these crazy things. And now their relationship is in such a wild spot. It's crazy. Yeah. Amazing. Glory to God. Like, it's just like, that's just doing it. And so it's all these things that's why I love Diane's story about her dad dying. That's why I love this guy's story about his porn. And as hard as it is with the people who've been in our program, who've had children die, God works all things together for good. Now there's testimony of what is possible to save a marriage because of a death of a child, because they're willing to share that, is now going to bring so many souls to heaven. So when they get there, not only will they see their child again, they're also going to see countless people there with them because of that death of the child. And that right there is way bigger than what we get focused on this life. And when you realize that, that will heal that process to a certain extent. I'm sure we'll always be brokenhearted that we lose a child, but at the same time, when you're using it for good and telling the devil, that's why my life verse is Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So the devil came to wreak havoc on them. But now, even in the face of death, where their child is dead, he's now coming on in our program as a head coach, saving marriages because of that. But in that moment, he thought my life is over, right? And so whatever there in the death, in hundreds of thousands of dollar porn, whatever it may be, there's still hope on the other side. It's never over. And so that hopefully gives people who are listening to this, who think that, well, we just haven't been communicating, we argue all this time. Oh, believe me, when your child will die, you will argue. When you spend all your money and you're cheating on your wife, you will argue, right? So when all these other little things, it's still God can overcome every single thing in life. You just got to be able to get real and look in the mirror and take the ownership on yourself and do that. And because of that, that will transfer over to the other person. But it starts with us on that. And so hopefully that gives hope to people who are in bad spots, because most marriages are.
You just gave a lot of hope to people. I want to ask you, what qualifies you and Diane for this job? Did you ever feel equipped? Did you ever feel qualified?
No, go.
I would say no, but experience and just letting God speak through us. I mean, I think those are the biggest things.
Yeah, because there's times when the haters come online and they're like, who are you guys to be speaking this? Show me your credentials. I'll tell you what, I would rather get financial advice from a dude who's balling out and has no degree, but everything he touches and he's investing well and he's doing that. That's what the dude I want financial advice from. I don't want it from a dude who's broke, but he has a degree that says he has the book smarts on that, right? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying there's not a benefit from going and doing those things. I just know, because I can speak on all of these things so passionately, because God put me in the depths of hell, and because he's brought me to this, and this is my cross to carry, because it is a very heavy mission. As much as like I'm stoked and I'm passionate about this, it weighs on me tremendously and never goes away. I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the people that I work with. So it is a cross that I carry. But because of that, God puts me through seasons So then I have authority and I'm qualified to speak on those things because I don't speak about it theoretical because I read it in a book and got some knowledge on it. I've lived it. And because I've lived it, I'm qualified to speak it. As you guys know, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right?
Yes.
And because of that, that's where I'm at. And because of that, that's why I get the fruit, is because people go, I relate to you because I see that you've been there, not because you just read it in a book and somebody said, here's a degree. And so that's where we got it. And it's all because of God, but it is life experience because of God, him working all things together through good throughout our whole life. That's John 13:7. You don't realize now what I'm doing, but later you'll understand. So when I watch my parents have the worst marriage in ever, when I watch my dad beat my mom, when I watch my dad bring all of his girlfriends around it, I'm thinking in that my life, that's terrible. Then guess what? I start doing those things. I start cheating on Diane in the beginning. God's just like, yeah, watch what I'm about to do with this. He was qualifying me to be able to experience all of that. So when he wrestled my heart and got a hold of it, I was now qualified to speak on those things because I've been in their shoes. And so everything he's put me through and Diane through is now our qualification process. And that's how we got here. So it's a phenomenal question.
Well said.
But I'm stoked on what's been happening because of it. And it's not done. He's going to put us through hard things again so then we can lead the next person and the next person.
Fortunately and unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for answering that. I asked because I didn't know your credentials. I just, I felt led to ask that question because there are a lot of people, just like ourselves, that are sitting in your shoes now and wanted to take a risk but don't feel qualified because we don't have the credentials, or we feel like we don't. We have the experience, but we don't think our experience is enough. And so I asked that question because I wanted you to give your answer, and I knew you would give an honest one. So thank you for being very vulnerable and answering that question honestly.
Well, and thank you for asking, because I'll be real with you. Imposter syndrome was something I struggled with for years.
Yeah.
But God just kept, keep going. And I was it was so hard because I just felt like an imposter for so long. But then he was like, look at your life. Look, you have the one thing that they all want. You have the 10 out of 10 marriage, so you're qualified to do it.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I just still felt that way. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Ed Milet. He's like my goat. And anyways, he said one time that even at his level, dude's like the top of the top, that he struggles with imposter syndrome from time to time. And he said he was coaching a former president of the United States, and he was thinking to himself, dude, I'm Ed Milet. I'm coaching the president of the United States. Like, how am I in this? I'm not qualified to do this. But then when he said what was even funny, when he was coaching that president, the president told him that he struggled with imposter syndrome. He said, man, I'm sitting in the Oval Office and I'm looking at a picture of Abe Lincoln on the wall over here, and I'm thinking, who am I to be in this Oval Office chair? Everybody's dealing with it, at the top of the president down to the person who's whatever. We all deal with it. But all I know is if you feel called from God, and you guys, right, like, let it rip, because he's the one who is going to fill you up and you can lean on him. It's what Paul says, right? Like when he wanted God to remove those thorns from his life, and he said, my grace is sufficient. My power is made perfect in your weakness. So let God's power shine through you because he's called you through there to it. So like, you guys are doing this. It's amazing because you guys are just answering the call on that. You may not have technically the degree. You might, maybe I just never asked that question, but you guys are more than qualified because you have this amazing marriage. I can see that the joy between the two of you. That's what everybody wants, is just a joyful marriage. And so that's what people need to get from people who have it.
I know I suffer with imposter syndrome. I know I have a story to tell, and it's just, and I know I'm called to tell it. I'm just like, I haven't gotten to the point where you guys are right now, but I know that God is, I'm gonna break through it. You guys are giving me the confidence that I need, because I do feel unqualified. And I've said,
trust the process. Right? God will give you the authority to speak.
You're more than qualified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I promise. It's like, here we are. You're seeing us today, but I promise you, where you're at now is probably way farther ahead than where we were when we started, and we were selling people into programs and stuff.
Yeah.
But, so you're more than qualified. It's just weird. The only way you get actual feel that way is just to be in the game, right? We can shoot all the practice shots we want, but only time you're actually going to feel qualified until you get in the game and you start hitting the shots. So you're in the game right now, and just keep it going, and just keep going and trusting God to do that for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Man, I just want to come to Vegas, man. Just hang out with y'all, man. This is dope, man. I just love all the information and that you guys are sharing, because that's really, really good stuff, man. And I'm just so excited, man, because you guys are so encouraging and inspiring from a place of, we've been at the bottom, right? And look what God has done. And the fact that you give God the credit for everything that you guys have achieved. And it was a few years, but still, that's a very short span from when, 2000, when y'all was at rock bottom in terms of financially. And then, a couple years later to being Diane's, stay at home, mom, and she's been a wife rather, and doing, business with you guys, man. It's just an amazing story. And I don't know if you guys every now and then reflect on how, well, it sounds like y'all do reflect on where God has taken you guys from to where you guys are now in a very short amount of time. Man, only God, man. Like we was talking about the math. The math ain't mathing. 1 + 1 for us is 1 + 1 for us is 2, but God don't add, man. He multiplies, right?
Yeah.
So God has moved in you guys' life, man, in an amazing way to where you guys are now impacting other people, and from you can pretty much say almost a broken situation, maybe your marriage broken, individually broken, but once again, God calls, man, the people he wants to be and be in the front of bringing his word to the people. But you got to go through some things, man, sometimes to get there. So he knows that you're actually ready and willing and able to answer his call. So you guys are doing it well, man. So kudos to you guys, man. I want to touch on something, man, that I've seen on you guys' story. We talked about it, I think we might have talked about it a little bit in the beginning when we talked to you guys the other day. But it was the story of, I think it was more than anything a story of faith, of how you guys, I think it was like selling your house or something like that, or y'all bought a house. Y'all looking at houses and y'all bought a house that was like maybe way out of range, and then you guys stepped out on faith and y'all still did. Man, share that story, because again, I think that was a God move, right? And it just goes to show how God is continuing to move in you guys' life in so many different areas. But it was based on how you guys really stepped out and put God to the test, and how you trusted him to move in certain situations and areas of your life, and he came through. You know what story I'm talking about? The whole house situation. Yeah, man, share that story if you don't mind, man, real quick, so we can hear how that went.
Yeah, you want to join it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so when we were moving to Vegas, we had a house in California, and we were getting ready to move. It was on a whim where we were like, we need to move. We're like, where are we going to move? And she was like, how about Las Vegas? Because we wanted something drastically different than we were, because we were in like a cold climate that rained, 7-8 months of the year, and it was in the middle of nowhere. So we were just like something drastically different. We just didn't want to make a small move, a comfortable, safe move to somewhere nearby. We wanted something drastically different.
We were doing it.
Let's just go at this point in time, because you guys heard like almost dying, all these things. Like, we're just going to do it. Let's just let it rip. And so when we literally looked online, we like, all right, well, cool. We saw a master plan community. We were like, all right, well, let's see. The prices aren't too bad. Let's come down. We just flew down and we found a house we wanted, but it was kind of a crazy scenario to where there was a house, and we live in a master plan community where there's now like 5,000 houses. At the time, there was maybe 2,000, and we were either going to buy a used house. And what did you call those things? Are they used to be owned? I don't know, but a house that wasn't new, but it was like pre-owned. So in our budget though, and then the house that I wanted, there's only maybe 20 of them in our neighborhood that like kind of sit up on a hill that overlook the Las Vegas, and it's the only one that has a backyard that doesn't back up to somebody else's house and all this other stuff. It was out of our budget, and we were always so used to just playing it safe, not doing courageous things. And we thought about it for like 3 weeks, and we were like, I don't know, are we going to do that one? Are we going to do the other one? And Diane was like, let's do the other one. And I was just like, babe, I feel like that's going to be a great move. We're going to be bummed after about a year. We wish that we had the other one. And so it was a crazy story at that time, because we didn't have the money to buy, because we couldn't sell our house until we had moved. And everybody's like, well, you guys are going to have to rent. You're going to have to rent. And God made a way. It's a wild story that if I tell you how, like all of that, it's going to blow people's minds, but it's also going to be a long podcast. So I need to detail that, but he made a way. Let's just put it that way. And so we decided to go out of our budget.
Mm-hmm.
We went with this house that we're in now, and we're just still so thankful for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the crazy part so we get it. So we thought for 3 weeks, as we said. We get it. We move in. Literally after we purchase it, the market shoots through the roof. What happened in COVID, right? So then to even buy a house in the neighborhood, it was 100-person deep, and you had to get in a lottery. So not only did we wait 3 weeks to think about it, if we waited any longer and didn't when God says move, you move. Like thankfully we did, because we would have been priced out of this neighborhood and we wouldn't have been able to move at all. If we didn't move at all, we don't start our mission. But because of that, we did. And so we got this house, and then the prices just went through the roof. So not only did we get in at a dirt cheap price, they went through the roof, and we wouldn't have even got a house at all, because it would have just weeks later been priced out. And just had have been in a lottery, which what's the luck of getting that chosen? And so it was wild what happened.
Yeah.
So we trusted, just one trusting thing after another, scenarios like that, where God was just like, all right, let's see if you're going to trust me. And we did it. And then the next thing, we did it. And the next thing, we just did it. And so now we just have the receipts showing that, like, all right, God, well, what's the next thing? And because of that, we just keep doing it time and time again. And then every single time he just makes a way.
Yeah.
But it's because we are actually praying and then planning, not planning and then praying. So we're getting we're getting the nod from God, and then we go and do it. We don't just be like, let's do this. And then God's being like, I didn't tell you to do that.
Yeah.
So it's gone well. And so it's been a wild testimony. Let's just put it that way.
I love how you said we did the praying, then planning, not the planning and praying, then praying. That's what we do a lot of. I love that. Love that. Are you guys familiar with the Enneagram?
Yes, we are. I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I can call out some numbers, but I won't.
I'm not like super proficient with it, but I know of it. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got one last question for Diane, and I'm curious to know, because like Tommy said, we see this woman now, right? This confident, this new woman, and everything that you read off of your phone is, this new person. Do you feel like other people see the change in you, like maybe family members, friends, people who knew you before? Do they see the change in you? And if they do, how do they respond to you now? Have anyone said, "Man, you're different," or have anyone acknowledged the change that they see in you?
Yes, and which is actually kind of funny, because I sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, I don't see it in myself. Sometimes I forget, like the kind of person that I was before. But I do have, a few friends for sure that, come to me for advice and things. And I'm like, well, I'm not qualified to give you the advice, you're doing the same thing I'm doing, but really then it reminds me of the kind of person that I was, and how much I had to grow and how much I had to change and go through and trust and just go through the process. And now I can help others do the same thing.
Wow. So are you kind of in a space where you're talking to other women and helping them, like, in their own journeys and stuff like that? What does that look like for you?
I have, when we coach couples and stuff, then I'll definitely coach other women and stuff too a little bit. But generally it was just like a couple of friends that I was mentioning, that I've, help and stuff, or ladies in my Bible study. And we talk about those things in general discussion and stuff.
Because over the years we've done a lot of couples as well. Earlier on that was mainly what
we started with, yeah.
And she would pour into the women tremendously, and honestly the men a ton as well. But now it is switching more over to me being, but she still does do like the group coaching with us, where she gets on, and the men love that. They love
the women's perspective. They want to hear the women's perspective
on it, because I can speak it, but then they go, okay, well, that's great, but let me hear what the wife actually says on this.
Yeah.
And so they love when Diane gets on, and which is weekly, and she coaches them and does all of that and whatnot. So
yeah, I love it, man. Well, look, guys, man, this has been amazing. Y'all dropped so many great information and just passion, and man,
You have increased my faith a little bit more.
Look, y'all was constant and didn't even know it. Y'all was getting a constant session over here, man, and didn't even know it. But man, everything y'all shared was just amazing, man. And I just really, really think that people who listen to this and watch it, man, is really going to get some value out of it and be inspired, just as we are. But I know you guys have a few things, in the works that you guys do in terms of coaching and whatever it is, man. Anything that you guys got going on, man, feel free to throw that out there right now, man. Let people know how they can connect with you guys, and even if they're looking to, do some counseling with you, whatever that may be. let them know, man, how can they contact you guys? Because we'll also have that in the show notes as well. I'll get with you guys to send that over and we'll put that in the show notes. But how can they reach out to you guys if they want to kind of connect with you?
I mean, the best way typically is I always say is Instagram, just because it's just the simplest, where you can go to DMs and things like that, you know. And so it's just Tommy McCollister on Instagram, and then Diane McCollister on Instagram as well. It's typically the best, but we run most of the business stuff through my account. So that's the best way. And then, so if anybody who wants to, and I can send it to you guys too, if you want to put it in the show notes, is we have like a free training. It's like 35 minutes long. And I promise, if you just do that 35-minute training, like, your life will drastically change. And so, but then obviously there's an offer at the end if you want to get on a coaching call with like one of our team members who will kind of talk to you about what it looks like to work with us in that. But at the same time, if your listeners just want that free 35-minute training, it breaks steps down of like how to transform your life with like a 3-step process that we do. That's how we work with people. And it walks them through that whole thing. So that's an option, or just reach out on Instagram. That's the best way. And then, or just listen to our podcast on High Level Husband on all the platforms.
Love it. Well, man, hey, you got any questions for these guys? Any last questions?
I don't, but I just want to say thank you for just taking the time out to sit with us and talk to us. We know you guys are busy, you're coaching people, and we just want to say thank you for answering the call.
Yeah, man,
thank you.
Absolutely. I second that, man. You guys are amazing, and I truly, truly love everything that you guys got going on. Tommy and Diana, man, it seems like you guys, you went through a tough time, for God wanted to use you for a greater good, right? And I think now y'all kind of reached a point where y'all in the promised land, baby. You know what I'm saying? And y'all moving forward, doing some amazing things, man. And I just continue to pray upon you guys, man, hoping you're much success in everything that y'all doing and all the lives y'all changing through y'all ministry. And y'all just keep doing, man. Keep doing it, baby. I love it. I love it, man. So anything else, man, that y'all want to share for any couples out there that might be listening, that might be, struggling in a certain area, maybe the personal development piece, for the man, for the woman. I mean, what do you suggest to close it out? And then we'll get into prayer. What would you guys both say for someone who's maybe, that you would encourage to kind of dig deeper into that personal development piece so they can benefit in their marriage? And
before you answer, I just want to say this about Diane. I love your energy. You seem like a person that is a really great listener. And so I love how meek and humble you are. I love that. And
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. I love your personality too, Tommy.
She's a great listener. Probably because she's a lot of practice, because I yap her ear off 24/7 all day long. So, but no, thank you guys so much for having us on here. This has been great. I mean, just from the moment we met you guys, last week when we first just did the call, we could just tell you guys is just who you were as your personality. We could tell the spirit moving between us and so much. And so I'm thankful for your guys' mission and everything you're doing. I honor you guys for it, because a lot of times people have ideas, but they don't actually do. Like you said, you're on season 2. Like, I think I did a stat a while back, and I think it said if you've done, I think it was 21 podcast episodes, you're in the top like 5% of the world in podcasts. Like, only 21 episodes, right? And so it shows like, hey, keep going. You just got to keep going and going. And that's the thing for anybody that could be on a podcast, that could be their life, is to keep going. But don't keep going and just doing the same things. You have to be different. Different is the key. You have to switch things up. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Change is scary, but there's nothing scarier than being 5 years down the road in the exact same spot. You have to constantly change and evolve. So whatever you're doing now, you don't have time to focus on personal development. Well, then enjoy the place where you're at right now, because that's a permanent location for you. You have to do things differently and keep moving and shaking and all those things. You keep doing that and things get good. Somebody used this in illustration one time, so it's not mine, but it's like putting chocolate milk into milk. If it just goes in, it's going to settle to the bottom. And you got to stir that bad boy up for it to stay as chocolate milk. But if you just let it sit, it goes and it's not chocolate milk anymore. It just settles in the bottom. Let the Holy Spirit be getting stirred up. Let you be getting stirred up. You do that, I promise you. Just stay consistent. Your life in 1 year will not be recognizable at all. Marriage, faith, personal. So just become different and see yourself different in all different aspects.
I love it. I love it, man.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, man. It seems like the whole podcast world, everybody's that 1 year, stay consistent for 1 year, you know?
Yeah.
And that's that magic time frame to start seeing really, you know, a change in everything, right? So we committed. We in this thing, man. And actually we love it. We enjoy it. And we feel like it's a part of, you know, of what the path that God has us on. So so we loving it, we enjoying it, man. But thank you guys once again, man. We're on Tommy, if you don't mind, close out in prayer. But thank you guys once again, man, for being a part of Couples Connect podcast, man. Listen, we always say this, but it's so true, man. We would love to have you guys on again, maybe later on. Once you guys start mixing some things up, changing, and some new things that came about, we'd love to stay connected with you guys and kind of touch base and see how things are going a little bit later on down the line, and love to just kind of stay connected with you guys. So,
and if you're ever in Dallas, Texas, please,
man,
seek us out.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're ever in Vegas,
likewise. Either way,
we will.
God's moving. We'll see what He has next for us, and I'm sure this is only the beginning of what He's going to do between the four of us. And so,
I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah. All right. So, Tom, you want to close it out?
Hey, absolutely, Father. We're humbled. We thank you for all that you've been doing in all of our lives, Father. We rejoice in the good, but we also rejoice in the hard times. We give thanks in all the hard times, and we welcome whether the good or the bad that will come into our life, because you know we will work it all together for good, Father. So we thank you first and foremost for all of our marriages. We thank you for Tanya and Kevin and for them to answering the call to start this podcast, to do this podcast and be consistent with this podcast. And then also reaching out to us and all the other people that they have that are getting brought on, Father. We pray that all the people that are listening to this, their hearts are being softened, their ears are actually hearing, and they actually put the action to their feet and go and do something about it. And they fully believe that you can do all of those things that you say in the Bible, Father. Because if they believe that your son died on the cross, they have to believe all the other stuff in there as well. Because it's not a pick and choose type of thing. Allow them to understand that, Father, that every single word in there is for every single one of your children. Not just some for some and some for other people, that for all of them, Father. So give them all hope, Father. Give them all hope that things are possible, because as you say, when you rejoice in your suffering, sufferings lead to perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And so allow them to feel that hope, but they also have to understand they have to go through the sufferings. They have to get the perseverance. They have to get the character to be able to really have that hope. So, Father, allow that action to be taken. Stir it up. Move with more power in their lives. Move with more power in their relationships. Yes. Allow this to reach every single person that it needs to reach, Father, and it just keeps going more and more and more. And we ask that this podcast is blessed with it, just the next guest to be even better, and the guest after that, every episode to keep growing. Allow the Tanya and Kevin's ministry to grow even bigger. Allow the imposter syndrome that might be there to go away. And even if it doesn't, like you didn't remove those thorns from Paul, Father, that they still push in and understand that your power is enough. And that's not just for Tanya, that's for every single person listening to this who just don't think it's possible, that whatever they're believing for, that they don't think it's possible, that it actually is. So we thank you. We love you. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Prayer.
Again, Diane, Tommy, man, thank you guys so much, man. Much love. Hey, if y'all ever needed anything, man, anything we can do to help, baby, holler at us, man. I would love to connect with you guys offline, man, just so we can kind of keep in touch for sure. But man, hey, this is another episode, man, with Couples Connect. This is Kev. This is
Tanya.
And we out. Peace.